When empires fall, their shadows stretch far. The year is 1947. Two nations are born from the same land, India and Pakistan. But peace was never guaranteed. This is the story of the first Indo Pakistani War. Just weeks after independence, war came knocking, not from across a distant border, but from the mountains of Waziristan. Pakistan, uncertain of Kashmir's fate, launched a militia campaign to tip the scales in its favor. The target, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, a land rich in beauty and even richer in strategic value. The Maharaja of Kashmir, Hari Singh, was already facing rebellion in Poonch. Chaos ruled the western districts. Then, on October 22nd, 1947, tribal fighters from Pakistan surged across the border. They moved fast. Their eyes were set on Srinagar. But when they reached Baramulla, they paused and they plundered. Desperate and cornered, the Maharaja reached out to India for help, but there was a price accession. And on October 26, 1947, under the pressure of war, the instrument of accession was signed. Kashmir was now part of India. Within hours, Indian troops were airlifted into Srinagar. The war had now truly begun. What started as a tribal incursion was turning into a full-blown war between two nations. British officers, still commanding both Indian and Pakistani forces, found themselves in an impossible situation. Their phone lines stayed open. Their orders were careful. Hit, but not too hard. The fronts hardened. The chaos settled into a long, cold standoff, and on December 31st, 1948, at 11:59 p.m., a formal ceasefire was declared. The war's result inconclusive, but strategically, India held two-thirds of Kashmir, Kashmir Valley, Jammu, and Ladakh, and Pakistan controlled the rest. This fragile balance still defines the geopolitics of South Asia today. But to understand why Kashmir became this battleground, we need to go back before 1947, before the partition, before even the British Raj. Long before borders, Kashmir was a patchwork of 22 states, ruled by Rajput kings and Afghan warlords. Known as the Punjab Hill States, they were tiny kingdoms nestled in the shadows of the Himalayas. Over time, the chaos of crumbling empires invited new rulers. First the Mughals, then the Sikhs under Ranjit Singh. In 1846, after the First Anglo-Sikh War, the British East India Company took control of Kashmir, but they didn't keep it. Instead, they sold it to Gulab Singh, a Dogra ruler, for 750,000 rupees. A business deal that created the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, a kingdom that would later sit at the heart of a deadly rivalry. Then came 1947. Partition tore the subcontinent in two. Violence erupted. Millions fled their homes. Over 1 million died. Kashmir, a Muslim majority region ruled by a Hindu king, sat in a dangerous limbo, and it was only a matter of time before both India and Pakistan set their eyes on it. The British tried to manage the fallout. Mountbatten stayed on as India's Governor General. Pakistan appointed Jinnah. Their plan was to keep the armed forces unified for a while, but mistrust ran deep. British generals on both sides tried to stop war from breaking out, but when orders came from Delhi and Karachi, restraint was overruled. One British officer even died in battle. The War of 1947 wasn't just the start of a conflict, it was the last gasp of a fading empire caught between two new nations. This was only the beginning, the first of many chapters The First Kashmir War lit the spark, but the fire still burns. By mid 1947, the British were gone. Their power, their flags, and their authority vanished. The princely states, once under British paramountcy, were now told join India or join Pakistan, but one state chose neither. In Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh and his Prime Minister Ram Chandra Kak stood at a crossroads. Joining India could anger his Muslim majority subjects, but joining Pakistan, that could leave the Hindu and Sikh minorities vulnerable. And so he chose the middle path, independence. This was no ordinary state. It was a mosaic of religions and cultures. In the Kashmir Valley, over 90% were Muslim. In Jammu, divided. Eastern districts were shared between Hindus and Muslims. Western regions like Poonch and Mirpur were predominantly Muslim. Ladakh was home to Buddhists. And Gilgit, far to the north, was overwhelmingly Muslim and strategically critical. In the Kashmir Valley, the powerful National Conference, led by Sheikh Abdullah, was secular and leaned toward India, but in Jammu, the Muslim Conference aligned with Pakistan. The state was divided, not just by borders, but by belief, and for a moment, the Maharaja's choice to stay independent seemed wise. But far across the frontier, another decision had already been made. According to Indian military sources, Pakistan had a plan, a secret invasion codenamed Operation Gulmarg. The plan called for 20 tribal Lashkars, over 20,000 Pashtun fighters, to be armed, trained, and unleashed. They came from Waziristan, from Peshawar, from Kohat, Hull, and Nowshera. By mid-October, they would all be in place. Half would storm the Kashmir Valley through Muzaffarabad. The rest would join rebels in Poonch and push toward Jammu. The plan was so secret, it was never meant to be known, but fate had other ideas. An Indian officer, Major O.S. Kalkat, stationed with the Banu Brigade, accidentally discovered it. His warning would be one of the first sparks that signaled something dark was coming. The Pavo Cavalry Regiment was tasked with supplying arms to the freedom fighters. The operation was led by Pakistan's Military Intelligence Director Colonel Sher Khan, along with Colonels Akbar Khan and Khanzada. 3 wings of the insurgents were established: South, Central, and North. By October 1st, the tribal fighters were fully armed. There was no shortage of guns, no shortage of explosives, and no shortage of determination. By September, armed Pashtuns were already gathering in Lahore, in Rawalpindi, in secret caravans across Punjab and the tribal areas. Lorries, reportedly provided by Pakistan's government, were seen moving fighters from Malakand to the border. Even the princely states of Swat, Dir, and Chitral, outside direct Pakistani control, were involved in the mobilization. Whether or not it was called Operation Gulmarg, the invasion was real. Pakistani sources deny the existence of a formal invasion plan, but Indian documents and military testimonies paint a different picture. 22 Pashtun tribes, tens of thousands of men, and one objective: Kashmir. The time for diplomacy was over. The countdown to war had begun. By August 1947, the storm clouds weren't just gathering at Kashmir's borders, they were rising within it. In the western district of Poonch, long simmering tensions finally exploded. Poonch wasn't just another part of Kashmir, it was an autonomous principality, ruled by a branch of Maharaja Hari Singh's family. But its people were restless. High taxes, no jobs, and an army of 60,000 ex-soldiers just returned from World War II, trained, armed, and now unemployed. By June, the people of Poonch had launched a no tax campaign. By July, the Maharaja ordered all soldiers in the region to be disarmed. The result, rebellion. The unrest in Poonch was harnessed by the Muslim Conference, led by Sardar Muhammad Ibrahim Khan. The goal, push for Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. Government reports say militias attacked convoys near Nowshera and Islamabad. State forces retaliated, roads were cleared, and by September, order was restored. But the Muslim Conference told a different story of massacres, flag hoisting turning deadly, and villages burned. Even British observers were divided. One said the entire affair was greatly exaggerated, another called it a reign of terror. Behind the palace walls in Jammu, the rebellion shook the Maharaja's confidence. As early as April, he had told confidants if independence failed, he would join India. On August 11th, Hari Singh dismissed his pro-Pakistani Prime Minister Ram Chandra Kak. By August 25th, he had offered the post to Justice Mahajan, but Pakistan was watching and it was moving. The Muslim Conference warned Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan, act now or lose Kashmir forever. Khan responded, not with diplomacy, but with disruption. Pakistan cut off essential supplies, petrol, sugar, salt. Trade in timber stopped. Train services to Jammu suspended. The blockade had begun. Sardar Ibrahim fled to West Punjab and set up a base in Murree. There, he began collecting weapons, and help arrived. Colonel Akbar Khan, a high-ranking Pakistani officer with a personal stake in Kashmir. Akbar Khan quietly diverted 4,000 rifles from army stores. He penned a plan titled Armed Revolt Inside Kashmir and sent it straight to Pakistan's Prime Minister. On September 12th, a secret meeting was held in Pakistan. Mian Iftikharuddin, Colonel Akbar Khan, Sardar Shaukat Hayat Khan. They brought two invasion plans to the table, one using the Muslim League's National Guard, the other involving Pashtun tribal fighters from the frontier. The Prime Minister approved both plans. He sent Khurshid Anwar, leader of the National Guard, to the tribal regions to mobilize the tribesmen. The clock was ticking. Facing rebellion from the west and a blockade from the south, Hari Singh was trapped. He begged Justice Mahajan to take office, but Mahajan wouldn't arrive for another month. The Maharaja sent a message to Delhi. He was willing to join India, but needed more time. But India wasn't ready to say yes, not without one condition. Jawaharlal Nehru insisted Sheikh Abdullah must be released, no accession without public support. And so, on September 29th, Sheikh Abdullah walked free. Nehru was firm. Every princely state in dispute must face a referendum, a plebiscite. We shall accept the result, whatever it may be. That policy was delivered to Liaquat Ali Khan on October 1st. Liaquat Ali Khan offered no response, but history was already in motion. Even as leaders debated peace, Pakistan's invasion force was gathering. The countdown was almost over.